committed to nonviolence in the middle of the most violent society that history's ever created. I'm not committed to nonviolence in any way.
Man or woman who hates communism the most, that is to say, the man or woman who knows the least about communism, is the man or woman who wants to know the least about communism. That is to say, snakes are my enemies. They come to bite me, and I don't even want to know what they look like.
We're going to see about stopping, regardless of what these people think we should do. Because school is not important, and work is not important. Nothing's more important than stopping fascism, because fascism will stop us all.
Yo. Welcome to the Forest Pod. Peace, comrades. Peace to all the radical Randys, guillotine Gregs. It's your boy, Comrade Villain, here with Comrade Lab. What's up, bro?
What up? What's going on?
You know, same old shit, man. Same bullshit. Well, actually, it's not the same bullshit. It's constantly new, crazy, different bullshit, but it's just so constant that it all blurs together. But, how you doing, man? You good?
Yeah, man, I'm doing all right. Just seeing if Ant-Man gon', claim his legacy.
Yeah, this is going to be the...
playoffs, man. Now, I'm feeling like if he takes down Golden State, man.
This is the first title right here. Yeah, he'll take down Golden State, and then OKC, and then Boston. This is his year. But just so everybody knows, today is March 6th, Minnesota.
May 6th.
Oh, my bad. May 6th. Minnesota's playing Golden State. Game 1. Western Conference semis. It's semifinals, right?
Yeah, I think so. Second round.
So we're going to have that going on in the background. Definitely not going to be distracted. But what's been going on, man? You hear, what are people talking about? I know you heard about what people were talking about on Twitter, I know.
Met Gala?
The Met Gala? No, what's going on with that?
I don't know. That's what I saw on Twitter last time.
Okay.
There a lot of Met Gala stuff.
No, man. People trying to figure out if 100 dudes could beat up a gorilla.
Oh. Yeah, no, I've seen that too, for sure. That's been like the last few days. I've seen a lot of that.
And like, I don't even understand how that's a question. Of course. Easy.
What? You think 100 dudes taking a gorilla?
Yeah, bro. We should take down fucking woolly mammoths. Yeah.
No weapons.
That was like 20 dudes.
No weapons.
No weapons?
Yeah, that's one of the...
Oh, that's a stipulation?
Yeah, stipulations. Yeah, it's no weapons, man. Barehanded.
Yeah, between 100 dudes, that'd be like 20 huge dudes.
But the thing is, like, you can't... I'm saying, first of all, just to be clear, I don't think 100 dudes is taking a gorilla. You only so many dudes can get at the gorilla at one time, right? So he's just going to pick...
I mean, the only thing we could really do is punch him.
Yeah, man, that's not going to
kick him. Maybe you break his ankle or something.
Somebody could try to get behind him, maybe choke him out, but...
Well, I was thinking about that, but I don't think so. You think someone could choke out a gorilla?
I think gorillas
gorilla neck?
Got thick ass necks.
Yeah, I fucking think so, my
dude. Yeah.
So, I need shit like that in my life to get my mind off of the nonsense that's going on in our society. But anything else you want to talk about before I jump into the first segment of the day?
Not really.
All right. Let's get into it. Today, what I'm going to be talking about is all these empty ports, man. What do you know about these empty ports?
I mean, not a lot. I mean, I've seen some stuff here and there, but I'm assuming it's due to the trade wars that are going on, the tariff wars.
Which ones did you see? Because I know I saw Seattle and L.A.
Yeah,
I would say Louisiana.
Oh, yes. The only one I think I saw was Seattle.
Okay. I do know L.A. and Long Beach and Seattle for sure. I can't remember the one in Louisiana. I should look that one up. But the port of L.A., you know what? Port of L.A. I don't know if this is... No, it's got to be Los Angeles because it's in reference to this other thing about Los Angeles. So Port of Los Angeles is projecting a 35% drop in imports in the next few weeks. So that seems like a lot. It's like a third. So obviously, I mean, maybe it's not obvious. This is repercussions or cause and effect of the tariffs, specifically the 145% tariffs on China. But Also, exports at 21 major ports are down as much as 50% in 5 weeks. Both of those numbers are coming from, what was it called? The Freight. It's the Freight Trade magazine. I got it listed here somewhere else. It'll show up in a second. But regardless, exports too. Why do you think exports are being affected by the tariffs? I understand imports.
Exports from the United States.
Yeah, they're
other
down 50% in just the last 5 weeks.
Dang, really?
Yeah.
50% in the last 5 weeks?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I know. Some countries, like China, of course, have put tariffs on U.S. imports rather. So that makes our exports more expensive in other countries.
Yeah, retaliation. This is
that works.
what they mean by trade war.
Exactly.
Even exports are going to be affected. So,
And their tariffs have actually been reciprocal. Just to be clear,
what do you mean by reciprocal?
like they're actually, well, in China's example, they actually had tariffs that were, in line with the tariffs that we placed on them.
Like they matched.
As opposed to what we did, which was just like use the
Unilaterally.
trade deficit.
Right.
Yeah.
The way we calculated.
Yeah, which
Yes.
is
Which was
not
weird.
a real formula
No.
to come up with a way to have accurate tariffs. So, yeah, I mean, we've seen reciprocal tariffs on, I know China at least, but I'm not sure what other countries have done for sure.
I do know that some of this, not some of this, the impact of the tariffs is causing some people to try and just go ahead and find alternative suppliers, like in America. So if we can't deal with China, let's try to make it work some other way. And what major mainstream economists are saying, like those at Brookings or the Peterson Institute for International Economics, these are laissez-faire, libertarian type think tanks, or they both estimate supply chains can take 6 to 24 months to recover, just depending on the industry. Low complexity goods like textiles and toys, 6 to 12 months. High tech or regulated goods like semiconductors, pharmaceuticals, 2 to 3 years. And switching incurs upfront costs like new contracts, compliance testing, logistics, rerouting. But these think tanks, they're defending this. They're saying it's necessary de-risking. I should have looked into what they mean by de-risking, but I'm assuming what they mean is not relying on China and these other countries. But I don't know where they think or what country is going to come and step in and fill that void. Our developing countries cannot do what China is doing for us. So from a socialist perspective, Richard Wolff, love Richard Wolff, that's my dude. He's saying the relocation timelines are going to be longer, probably like 3 to 5 years, especially the ones from China. Much of the developing nations, like I was saying, that we could use for alternatives, they don't have the infrastructure, the scale, or the integration that China has with us. Multinational corporations aren't incentivized to fully rebuild domestic capacity, which would take government coordination and public investment, which again, like we talked about previously, is how this usually works. The tariffs go along with subsidies and certain policies domestically to try to help certain specific industries, not just this weird blanket thing that we've done. So that's not happening. It's going to be longer, he thinks, than what the other economists are predicting. So what are some of the examples of the partnerships, the alternatives that the other countries are doing? Do you know of any countries that are linking up to try to get around doing business with America now?
I don't know about, linking up, or, I mean, I've seen, of course, like the reports of China and Japan and
South Korea
actually having some talks. I don't think they've, nothing's been signed or there's nothing concrete there, but Of course, for these countries to be talking, obviously, there's bad history there. Japan colonized Korea and China, so for these countries to be talking about sort of
Putting that history aside, and
to normalize some sort of trade relation without the United States being in the mix.
I guess that would be de-risking for them,
Right.
not relying on our unstable ass.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Our bipolar Kanye crazy mentality. Yes, that's the main one that I saw. But there's also just the world has been going against global hegemony for the last, I don't know, maybe 10, 20 years. I don't know how long, but there's already been stuff in the works before the tariffs, like China and Latin America. China's expanded trade ties with Brazil, Argentina, and Mexico. 2023, Brazil began settling some trade in yuan, bypassing the U.S. dollar. So they're already doing that. China and Russia, of course, part of BRICS. They've deepened energy and tech cooperation. Russia exporting oil, gas, and wheat to China. The Asian Trade Bloc, ASEAN. You know about this?
Yeah, ASEAN.
ASEAN. I knew that's probably how it was pronounced.
Yeah.
It's countries like Vietnam, Malaysia, and Indonesia. They're trading more directly with each other.
Right.
And they're doing it also with China, and it's via this Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, the world's largest trade pact. Have you ever heard of this before?
No.
It was signed in November 2020, came into effect in January 2022. It's 15 Asia-Pacific countries, including places like Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam, plus China, Japan, South Korea, Australia, and New Zealand. Covers about 30% of the global GDP and population, and aims to reduce tariffs, streamline customs procedures. So essentially, it's an alternative. Some people view it, and I view it as this, a Chinese-backed alternative to the U.S.-led deal, the TPP that Obama was trying to get pushed through. Do you remember the TPP?
Of course.
What do you?
Trump got us out of it. Shout out to Trump. Not really. But that was actually not a bad thing for him to do, because there was a lot of criticism of the TTP, just like any trade agreement. NAFTA was another one that was criticized a lot during that campaign cycle. But basically, there was a lot of bad stuff in there, like for corporations, patents, weak labor protections. I think there was some provisions that made it difficult for countries to sue if a corporation, maybe polluted in their country
while they're exploiting their resources. Yeah,
exactly. So a lot of people said it undermined the sovereignty of countries. So there was a lot of criticisms of the TTP, and Trump pulled out of it.
Well, then also just with but labor unions, they were against it because it's offshoring jobs,
right? Just like NAFTA and
exactly. That's why when you said NAFTA, that's what I thought it was, the labor unions, right? So the other thing, like I just mentioned, that the world is doing to get around these tariffs, is BRICS. We're going to keep talking about it because it's the major alternative to if you don't want to deal with America anymore globally. And the membership, I actually pulled up the current list. How many do you think are current members, like full members? Do you know?
BRICS?
Yeah.
I don't. It's got to be 20 or close to 20 or more. In that ballpark.
Full members.
Full members?
Yeah. There's full members and there's partner countries.
Yeah, there's partner countries. Maybe I'm just thinking of other partner countries.
It is about 20 for both,
Okay.
But there's 11 full members right now.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. That's the BRICS. And then,
Ethiopia,
yep. And then, do you know any more?
Iran,
Yep.
Egypt.
Yep.
That's, I
Two
know
of 'em-
some more, but
Two of them just joined in January of this year, which were
UAE, did they join?
Yep, they joined. UAE joined in January of 2024,
All right.
Indonesia and Saudi Arabia both
yeah.
joined in January of 2025.
Saudi Arabia is not actually. They haven't committed.
Well,
Quite yet.
it's funny you mentioned that. Hold on, because I saw the same thing. I saw something where Saudi Arabia had withdrew. Hold on.
Yeah, they're hedging a little bit because they have very close ties, of course, to the United States. They have a lot of investments in the United States. Trump has a decent relationship with the Saudi monarchy, so I feel like they don't want to commit to the BRICS because they know, of course, Trump's not a big fan.
So, okay, that makes sense. MBS and Trump.
Right.
But here's the timeline real quick. August of 2023 is when the Saudis were invited to join BRICS,
Right.
Alongside Egypt and Iran. Full membership was supposed to be in January 2024, like those countries. In late 2023, that's whenever reports emerged that Saudi Arabia had not yet signed the accession memorandum, the BRICS accession memorandum, which was part of the paperwork for applying. In January 2024, when they're supposed to be the full member or become full members, they're not listed among the final confirmed entrants because they never finished the paperwork. But in January 2025, they completed the formal process and were recognized as full BRICS member.
Okay.
But you know what? I don't know what the source is on this. So you know what? I'll fact check that, and I'll let you know the next episode.
All right. We'll circle back.
We'll circle back to
So
that. Put
corporate
a
speak.
pin in that.
Put a pin in that.
But yeah, just real quick, the partner countries: Belarus, Bolivia, Cuba, Kazakhstan. Is that where Borat's from?
I think so. One of those.
My wave. Malaysia, Nigeria, Thailand, Uganda, and Uzbekistan.
Damn.
And then
I always think about
what?
what was old dude's name? I just lost it. The pizza guy who ran for president, black dude.
Herman Cain.
Herman Cain. You don't remember he was on the debate stage? He was like, I don't need to know about Uzbekistan or something along those lines.
Oh fuck! No, I don't remember that. That's
Rest-
hilarious. I remember him.
Cain, man. Yeah,
Remember
yeah.
the Cain train? Was he the 999 guy?
Yeah, that was him. I
Which would
think he
go-
based it off like a pizza promotion or something. Maybe I might. have
That's
just made that
hilarious,
up.
and it sounds like a pizza promotion, but also sounds like some Hitler would say, which would go really good. He probably would get elected right now if he had the 999 shit.
Oh man, that was a crazy.
We thought that
primary.
was a crazy time. It was pretty
I
funny.
mean that primary process.
The
just
primary
all
was the best time of my
the,
life
The characters, man, and that.
because that was 2016, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, before Trump got elected, the Republican primary was the funniest thing I'd ever seen in my life because I thought there's no way he's going to get elected. This party is just crashing, burning. This is so funny. Whoops. All right, real quick, back to BRICS. There's 24 other countries that have applied to join. I'm not going to read them all, but some of them like Vietnam, Pakistan, the Republic of Congo, Afghanistan, Taliban's getting down with BRICS.
Yeah.
Morocco, yeah, Nicaragua, Philippines. So we have to do a deeper segment on BRICS one day. Just go deep into that.
For sure.
Let's see here, and then one more alliance: Europe and Asia. They're also strengthening their ties, expanding trade deals. The EU has recently expanded trade deals with Japan and South Korea, so they have less reliance on U.S.-based tech and agriculture. So yeah, here we go. This is what happens in a trade war. All right, so quickly try to wrap this up. What this means is there's a sharp drop in the port traffic because there's less stuff coming in and out of the ports. That's how this conversation started with ports, which means there's going to be fewer dock workers or fewer hours for dock workers. So, I mean, at least I think union dock workers didn't support Trump, right? I know the International Longshore and Warehouse Union, which apparently is the largest, or no, they represent West Coast dock workers. They did not support Trump. So that's good at least, but they're getting fucked as part of this. Same with truck drivers, rail transport people. Truckload demand is down 12 to 18% as far as just like trucking. And do you know that's like, I think it's the largest employer of our country. It's truckers.
Really?
I thought it was Walmart. Actually, let's find out.
Yeah, I feel like it's got to be Walmart. But Walmart employs a lot of truckers too. So
Exactly. A little crossover there. It's one of the largest industries by employment. 3.5 million truck drivers. That's
like
a lot
3 of my
people.
cousins are truck drivers.
Really?
Yeah, they're all like in their 20s, and they all got CDLs like in the last few years.
Hell
Started
yeah.
driving trucks.
That's what's up, man. I have seen that they've been advertising for younger truck drivers because
Yeah.
they need truck drivers right now. It says here there's 7 million or well over 7 million trucking related jobs like warehouse logistics, freight services. It's like downstream stuff that is also going to be affected by this. So they're going to have fewer hours, fewer shifts. So less money for those, low level workers. It's just less money. It's going to be floating around the economy. So it's probably not great. Retail. Import volume from China has reportedly plunged 60% for retail. And I was watching a clip of some guy on Bloomberg. Oh yeah, it was the executive director, I want to say, of the Port of LA, and he was saying, yeah, I don't know if he said the worst thing, but he said like this is a problem because summer fashion is coming around the corner. like that's the thing we should be worried about.
Right.
And then one of the other panelists was like, also back to school. Like, I don't know. That's just something, I don't know. People are just so disconnected. But so toys, consumer electronics, apparel, they're going to be the thing that's hit the hardest from this because a lot of that stuff comes from China and Southeast Asia. And as, we explained, those tariffs making China not deal with us and make Southeast Asia deal with China. So that's going to be a problem. I don't care so much about those little things. But retailers won't have full stock of key products for the holiday shopping season. I don't really care about that either. Maybe less presents this year, whatever. Some promotional campaigns or product launches are being canceled. Like the Nintendo Switch 2, people have already said, or Nintendo's already said that they may have to delay because they import a lot of stuff from Vietnam and China. So that's the only big thing I saw besides Mattel toys. The Rivian R2 SUV. Have you ever heard about the Rivian?
Yeah, man, I like the Rivians. They're cool. I've seen a few around here.
Apparently, they're made in Illinois, but they rely on imported battery cells. So they're going to have to stop the launch of their next SUV, apparently, or at least push it back.
Dang.
So
I was hoping to get one.
When did these tariffs go into effect? Like a month ago, maybe a little over a month ago.
Yeah.
So already, this is what we're seeing. And the predictions are that mid-May, so mid this month, we'll start to see reduced variety on shelves, out of stock labels, longer shipping times, delivery delays for things like Amazon and Walmart, and then price increases on high demand, low supply items. That's coming from National Retail Federation and the Daily Economy, along with Freight Waves. That was the other one. Freight Waves is the major publication for, shipping.
Okay.
So by summer, fall, there's going to be more widespread empty shelves, like entire categories like toys or electronics just missing. Back to school, pre-holiday shopping, that stuff's going to be gone or very low supply. Retailers will be using more shelf facings for fewer products to hide gaps. So I already saw actually one. I think it was a Publix. I might be just shitting on Publix right now for no reason, but they had like a picture of the product that used to be there. It was just like taped over on the shelf, but there was nothing there. So I was like, it's weird. And then, surge pricing or early access pricing for a lot of things that are going to become more in demand. Hopefully you assholes won't go buy all the toilet paper and cause surge pricing for toilet paper. Everybody just chill out. But we also could have rolling shortages, which are going to be like different products out of stock at different times. Electronics may be scarce in June, toys in July, clothing in August, or like one region. West Coast may experience shortage before the Midwest. So the shortages will roll through America. So it's going to be interesting to see how that's reported on and how people's interpretation of reality goes. If their store shelves are fine, maybe this is all fake news. So we'll see. But essentially, one last thing, I was trying to look into if the tariffs were reversed or scaled back. How quick could the shortages be reversed? Best case scenario, 2 to 3 months for like restocking to begin. So this is after the tariffs have been reversed and assuming all these countries are going to just start dealing with us again. But a more realistic average is like 4 to 6 months before shelves get to normalize. Worst case, 6 to 12 months if the global supply chains remain stressed or if retailers delay reordering due to uncertainty. And, I'm pretty certain there's going to be uncertainty because that's what we've had ever since he's been sworn in. He being Trump, Mango Mussolini. Paul Krugman. What do you know about Paul Krugman?
I don't like him.
I don't like him either. He's a New York Times columnist. Nobel laureate, though, so,
They
Nobel
give those to
Prize,
everybody.
man. Obama got one for droning people.
Right, exactly.
Paul Krugman warns that removing the tariffs doesn't instantly undo the damage, predicts at least 1 full quarter for import volumes to recover, assuming shipping lanes are available and consumer demand holds steady, which I don't think consumer demand is going to hold steady if a lot of these jobs are impacted. Again, that's less money being spent by the lower class who has to spend the money that they make. That's less money in circulation. That means there's less money for other lower class workers that aren't getting their money, like, I don't know, waitresses, stuff like that. So there's probably going to be less demand. And assuming shipping lanes are available, who knows what that means? What's going on with the Panama Canal? I don't fucking know. So even Paul Krugman's like, best case scenario, at least a full quarter of, before we can get back to normal. The Peterson Institute for International Economics, which is also pretty laissez-faire libertarian think tank, American libertarian think tank, they estimate 4 to 6 month delay. So even worse. And note that shipping containers, factory capacity, and distribution labor must all resynchronize, which, yeah, Americans aren't great with that. Oxford economics models show that even immediate tariff repeal results in only partial recovery by the fourth quarter of 2025 due to lagging contracts, port booking backlogs, and retailer caution. So the Brits thing is going to be even worse for us. That's cool. Oxford, right? That's Britain, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Pretty sure.
So now Richard Wolff, a Marxist perspective, thinks 6 to 9 months minimum. And it's not going to fix the fragility of the capitalist system that's been exposed by this. Michael Hudson, I know you like him.
That's my guy.
Shout out Michael Hudson, Marxist Michael. He suggests a deeper problem, de-dollarization and multipolar trade shifts are underway. So even with reverse tariffs, supply lines may remain unstable. Countries diversify away from U.S. markets like we're already seeing. A full recovery is probably going to be longer and uneven, which means it's not going to be like a full recovery. So, you got retailer confidence, shipping lane availability. Can China and other exporters ramp back up to what they were doing? I don't know, man. Inventory cycles, consumer demand. Seems like we're headed towards a recession, possibly a depression. And if people are going to the stores, the grocery store, the Target, whatever, the clothing store, because everything has been blanketed tariffed, and they're seeing empty shelves and these places hiding gaps, and the people that they know are getting less hours and everyone's spending less. I think it could turn into a run on maybe not banks, but like essential goods, which is going to make things even worse. So it's not great.
Toilet paper.
Please don't fucking hog all the toilet paper, guys. I'll fucking come get you. But yeah, man. Any final thoughts about all of this?
No, not really. It's just gonna be, interesting to see how this plays out. Recession, if it does cause a recession, obviously that's not great for Trump. The primaries coming up next year, and you know, he doesn't want to be dealing with a recession. So I don't know if they're gonna reverse course, what their play is gonna be here. But I guess we'll see.
I mean, he's actually said some pretty funny things about like it's not that serious. Didn't he say something about dolls?
Nah, I didn't see that.
Like people don't need so many dolls. Hold on.
Well, that new LeBron doll just came out.
Holy shit! I wonder if that's what he was talking. Because why the fuck was he talking about dolls?
Yeah.
And what is that? Why is there a new LeBron doll?
Yeah, I'm not really sure, but it looks pretty dope, man. He's got the
Okay,
jacket
here
and the hat. Go ahead.
he said in a cabinet meeting. This was on April 30th of this year, 2025. He acknowledged that his tariffs could lead to more expensive and fewer consumer goods, like we've been talking about,
Right.
stating that children might have 2 dolls instead of 30.
Wow.
Dude, how fucking like beyond out of touch?
Gotta tighten your belts.
Is that the new let 'em eat cake? Let them have 2 dolls. They don't need 30 dolls. It's crazy that they ask him about this shit and that's his response.
Yes, man, he's something else.
Yeah, man. So, all right. Well, that's all I got to say about ports and tariffs and the coming financial economic collapse of America.
Possibly. We'll see.
Probably. More probable.
They may
than
have
less.
some other rabbits.
I'm going
up their sleeve,
60-40.
but
If
yes,
this was
that's
on
not the same.
FanDuel right now, I bet the odds would be like minus 160 financial collapse.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see.
If once the
It's not-
store shelves are empty and people start freaking out and probably make this worse, the odds are going to go to minus 240. That's what I'm taking.
Is that what
my bet.
Vegas is saying?
I don't even know if I'm saying this right.
Does Vegas got odds on this?
You know what? They have odds on everything.
I know.
I mean, I
If Ve-
guess.
if Vegas thinks it's gonna collapse,
I mean, isn't that what the stock market is, though?
just betting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So people were making. Well, you can't bet on the market as a whole, can you? I don't know. I guess
Right.
you can bet on like the top 10. Hold on. Las Vegas sports books do not offer betting odds on the collapse of the U.S. economy. However, online prediction markets like Kalshi and Polymarket allow individuals to speculate on economic events such as the likelihood of a U.S. recession in 2025. So there are other markets. Why Las Vegas sports books don't offer such bets? Because they focus on sports events, some cases political elections. Betting on economic indicators like a national recession is not standard practice due to regulatory constraints and the complexity of defining. I guess it would be kind of hard to define that for a bet. How do you define recession? No, I wouldn't. Just pick a point. Pick a price point.
Recession is, I thought it was at least 2 quarters of negative growth or near zero growth or something along those lines. I think it's 2 consecutive quarters of.
Typically 2 or more consecutive quarters marked by widespread drops in GDP, employment, consumer spending, industrial production, and business investment. Technical definition: in the U.S., a recession is officially declared by the National Bureau of Economic Research. That NIBR. I don't like that.
That's a government body?
I guess so.
Trump's just gonna take over that and say like, we having a recession.
Yeah, hold on. What is that real quick?
He's gonna put his own people in there.
It's a nonprofit, nonpartisan research organization, but I don't think they are tied to the U.S. government. It's not a government agency, but it's funded in part by government grants. So it's influenced.
Okay. So Trump gonna be like, look,
Do you
If
want
you-
to kind of... Yeah.
you want these grants?
Yep. Then I suggest you say we're in a pro-session. It's the fucking opposite of a recession. All right. All right, man. Let's go ahead and take a quick ad break, and we'll be right back with some more interesting shit. USA, democracy in a box. Are you a struggling nation with too many social programs and not enough private equity? Then you need USAID, the all-in-one solution for democracy, development, and discrete destabilization. Just sign one of our easy-to-read 800-page contracts, and you'll get infrastructure, investment, and a lifetime supply of neoliberal economic policies you didn't ask for. Just listen to this testimonial. I thought we were getting hospitals. Turns out we got a McDonald's in a military base. Thanks, USAID. But wait, there's more. Call now and we'll throw in a free election monitoring team that only questions the results when our guy loses. Bonus offer, be one of the first 50 countries to apply and we'll send you a charismatic white guy named Brad to train your farmers while he updates his travel blog. USAID. Side effects may include water privatization, debt traps, suspicious coups, and an IMF-induced austerity. Not valid in countries with functioning socialist parties. Operators are standing by. In Langley. Yo. Welcome back to the Forest Pod. Comrade Villain here. About to get an egg of knowledge cracked on my head by Comrade Lab. What are we talking about today?
So we're going to be talking about cashmere.
Cashmere. That's soft clothing.
Yes.
Soft fabric.
It is.
And it is a place. The same way, like, what's the name of that wine? That has to, or champagne has to come from Champagne, Italy. Cashmere has to come from Kashmir. And Kashmir is in India, right? Pakistan.
It's in disputed territories, maybe.
Okay, that's why I'm confused then. Okay, elaborate. Or what do you want to talk about?
So, yes, I mean, Kashmir is in northern India. Normally, when people are referring to Kashmir, they're talking about India.
Okay.
So essentially,
is it on the border with Pakistan?
Yeah, it's on the border with Pakistan for sure. So there was, let's see, this was on April 22nd. I'm just gonna read off some stuff here, and shout out to some of this is from Al Jazeera. I mean, I think the People's Dispatches. No, Counterpunch.
Okay, shout out Counterpunch.
Good publication, so check them out. But let's see, on April 22nd, armed militants opened fire on tourists and I'm just gonna let you guys know these Indian Hindu names. I'm gonna butcher them.
No, you got this.
No, they're gonna be butchered, but it's fine. Respect. I love the Indian people.
Red dot and feathered.
Pahalgam, a scenic area in India, administered Kashmir, killing 26 people. This was the terrorist or a militant attack. And injuring many others in the deadliest civilian attack in the region in over 2 decades. The Resistance Front, the TFR, linked to the Pakistan-based group, the Lashkar-e-Taiba, claimed responsibility, citing opposition to India's policies in Kashmir. The assault, which struck during peak tourist season, deeply shocked the local population and threatened the region's recovering tourism industry. India immediately blamed Pakistan, and launched a series of retaliatory diplomatic and strategic actions, including suspending key provisions of the Indus Waters Treaty.
So this is why the tensions have risen, because I have seen that there's been some serious rise in the tensions between India and Pakistan, which are both nuclear armed countries that hate each other.
Yes.
But this was the catalyst that started everything recently?
Yes.
Okay.
This April 22nd attack. They suspended the provisions of the Indus Waters Treaty, canceling visas, expelling defense officials, and closing the Wagah border crossing. Pakistan responded in kind and warned that any move to divert its share of river waters would be treated as an act of war. Tensions have since escalated rapidly between the two nuclear, as you just mentioned, armed neighbors. India's unilateral suspension of the Indus Waters Treaty, a pact that has endured despite past conflicts, and they've had different conflicts over the last few decades, marks a significant breach of international norms. So that's what's going on, and we'll probably come back to that a little bit. But of course, I always like to give people some historical context. This is just the latest iteration of.
Yeah, because I don't know too much. All I know is that they have that border. So India to the north is bordered by Pakistan to the northwest, and then Nepal and China to the northeast.
All right.
And then on the other side to the northwest, on the other side of Pakistan is Afghanistan. So somewhere on the border, is it Islamabad? I'm not sure. Where they have people or military, I don't know, people from India and from Pakistan that dress up in like these nice showy military garb and have like dance marches against each other as like a show of, I'm a badass, don't cross this line.
Force, yeah.
So that's all I know is that they really don't like each other. They both have nukes pointed at each other, and they have this line, this border where they constantly are taunting each other. But why? Give me some history.
Yeah, so a little bit of the history here. All right, so we're gonna start with British colonialism.
Great place to start.
Fuck
the Brits.
A lot of the geopolitical tensions that exist in the world today can be traced back to the British Empire. Just, so you guys know.
Because they colonized the world.
Yes, they did. They were the first. Well, I don't know if they were the first, but
Rome did some pretty good colonizing.
Yeah, but they were
They took it to a new level.
They were, they were they pioneered the modern colonization essentially.
Right.
But let's see. 1700s, Britain East India Company slowly took control of parts of India, mostly through trade and military alliances. In 1858, after the Indian Rebellion of 1857, the British Crown took direct control of India. This was called the British Raj. The Britain governed by exploiting religious and ethnic divisions, especially between Hindus and Muslims. All right.
So those are the major religions in India.
Yes.
And there's a billion people?
1.4.
1.4, okay.
Yeah. Over time, Hindu and Muslim identities hardened politically. So this is just, classic divide and conquer stuff, of course.
Okay.
Creation of the India-Pakistan partition of 1947. Post-World War II, Britain was too weak to hold on to India and agreed to leave. But there was a problem. There was a Hindu majority versus the Muslim majority demands for self-rule clashed. Solution, Britain oversaw the partition, splitting British India into India, which is mostly Hindu,
Mm-hmm.
and Pakistan,
Which is mostly Muslim.
Okay. Yes. So this is how you get India and Pakistan.
Gotcha.
Right. So it was all one thing that the British ruled over.
Split it up.
Yeah.
Y'all go over here. Y'all go over here.
Right.
We'll control both of you.
Absolutely.
Pit
So
you against each other.
let's see. So there was terrible consequences after that. Of course, about 15 million people were uprooted during this partition process. It was the largest migration in history, which I didn't realize. I just learned that.
Really?
Yeah, apparently. I didn't really dig into that any further, but
Okay.
over 1 million were killed in communal violence against Hindus and Muslims and Sikhs. Deep, bloody scars between India and Pakistan that still fuel the hatred today. Kashmir and India-Pakistan conflict. At partition, princely, local kingdoms had to choose whether to join India or Pakistan. Kashmir was Muslim majority region ruled by a Hindu king. I'm not going to try to say his name.
Just do it. Just try it.
Mahara Hari Singh.
Nailed it.
Yeah. The king delayed choosing, so he didn't want to pick. He's like, dang, I don't know. I'm a Hindu king, but like most of the place that I reign over is Muslim. But when Pakistani tribesmen invaded, the king asked India for military help, and in return, agreed to join India. So that's what happened.
And so the partition that was in 1947.
Right.
That's when this happened with Kashmir too, around the same time.
Yeah. So after the partition, you get Pakistan.
Mm-hmm.
This creates Pakistan as a country in India.
Mm-hmm.
And my understanding is Kashmir was still like, I guess like maybe a semi-autonomous type region in between the two.
And it's in the Himalayas too, which probably helped it. People kind of left them alone, I would assume.
Yeah. I'm not sure what was behind that, but essentially they kept some autonomy, is my understanding. And then of course, I guess there was a push for the kingdom to like make a decision, like what you want to do. You rule over your Hindu, but you rule over mostly Muslim people. And ultimately, I guess some Pakistani militants or tribesmen invaded. I guess they wanted to take Kashmir, and India, of course, backed the Hindu king, and there you go. So this resulted in the India and Pakistan fought in the India-Pakistan War. This was 1947 to 1948. See, a UN ceasefire split Kashmir into two parts. The India-administered Kashmir and the Pakistani-administered Kashmir.
So the Brits split them up. They went to war, and then UN officially.
What's that?
So like the Brits split them up. Then they kind of like went to war with each other, and then you said the UN came in and officially.
Yeah, there was a ceasefire. A UN ceasefire split Kashmir into two parts. The India.
Oh, they split Kashmir. Okay.
Yeah, the India administered part and Pakistani administered part.
So it was like a Berlin situation.
Yeah, I guess that's
East Berlin, West Berlin.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
So essentially, this is where the tensions are. This is where they started at. Yes. Now, I did also want to talk about. So I want to fast forward a little bit and talk about what has sort of led to the most recent government being in power.
Okay.
I don't know if you've heard of Modi.
I have heard of Modi, and Modi is India, right? Or is he Pakistan?
Yes.
He's India.
He's India.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay. I have heard of him. I cannot remember if it was positive or negative. I want to say positive. So what do I need to know about Modi?
So we're not going to go to Modi yet.
Okay.
I wanted to sort of lead up to Modi. So basically, we're going to fast forward a little bit. By the way, I should probably mention there was a lot of fighting in between this. So let me just touch on this. So after that first initial war, there was another war in 1965. Pakistan launched Operation Gibraltar to infiltrate Kashmir. India retaliated with fully military force. With a full military force, ended a stalemate and a Soviet-brokered peace. This 1971, India supported Bengali independence fighters in East Pakistan. War resulted in Pakistan's defeat and the creation of Bangladesh. 1980s, Pakistan's military and intelligence supported Kashmiri militants and jihadist groups like Lashkar-e-Taiba. I mentioned them earlier. 1999, the Kargil War. Pakistani troops and militants infiltrated India's positions. India repelled the incursion, dangerous due to both sides being nuclear powers. It's just a caveat that I added there. And then, of course, there was Cold War tensions. 1950s to 1980s, the U.S. saw Pakistan as sort of a strategic Cold War ally. Pakistan joined SEATO and CENTO. These were the Southeast Asian Treaty Organization and the Central Treaty Organization.
So that was our NATO for over there?
Yeah, more
Interesting.
or less. Yeah.
Okay.
So, that they were getting Pakistan was getting a lot of support from us, military support, of course, from the United States. Um, let's see. There was the Afghan-Soviet War in 1979 through 1989. Pakistan became a main conduit for U.S. and Saudi support in support of the Mujahideen.
So the U.S. teamed up with Pakistan to support the Mujahideen in Afghanistan against the Soviets.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Proxy war shit.
Yep, causing problems.
Mm-hmm.
This militarized Pakistan's security establishment and led to the rise of radical Islamist groups, some of which later turned their attention to India. And also there was the Sino-Soviet split. This was in the 60s whenever China and the Soviet Union kind of had a falling out over some ideological, differences that they had. South Asia became a Cold War proxy theater. India increasingly aligned with the Soviet Union, even though India tried to keep a sort of a non-aligned policy, but it did have better relations with the Soviet Union. Pakistan aligned with China and the U.S. So this kind of just gives you guys an idea of just all the sort of geopolitical issues at play here in the divisions and tensions.
Well, just real quick, because the radical Islamist groups thing, like you'll often see in these areas or news being reported about these areas in Western media outlets that are like, man, these places are destabilized because of these radical Islamist groups.
Right.
But a lot, if not most of the time, these radical Islamist groups are created by, in this case, the partition and the divide and conquer, the colonialism.
Right.
We create the Islamist groups. They then, in the name of Islam, do some kind of attack that is that is specifically about politics or geopolitics or whatever. But in the West, we just say, look at these crazy radical Islamic groups causing some crazy terror. And they definitely don't exist, and they're definitely not attacking because of colonialism and Western exploitation of this area.
Right.
It's just, just damn radical Islamist groups. So I just wanted to mention that because I hate that.
Yeah, that's a theme.
Like in this instance, it's going to be a radical Islamist group from Pakistan, but really it's, like you said, there's a history of a disputed area between these two countries.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Yes. And of course, the West and the United States in particular has a history of using these groups, for their own geopolitical interests.
Or we wouldn't be there.
Exactly. So that's just that's some of the history there. Now, again, I want to go ahead and jump forward a little bit to the 90s, the early 90s.
Let's do it.
So
rocking Jinkos. Let's go.
19. This is probably before Jinkos. I don't know when Jinkos came.
Jinkos was in the 90s.
Yeah, early 90s though. It was like whenever we were
94. I don't know.
I wore Jinkos in middle school, so
when was that?
Like the late 90s.
Okay, yeah, you're right. All right, keep going.
But 1990, 1991, India was nearly bankrupt with just 2 weeks worth of foreign exchange reserves left, barely enough to pay for imports like oil or essential goods. Causes of this were high fiscal deficits. India had been running large budget deficits. The government often borrowed money from abroad to bridge the gap. There was import dependence. India imported oil, capital goods, and machinery, but didn't export enough to balance this out.
Trade deficit, baby.
Exactly.
They need some tariffs.
There was also an oil shock. This was in part due to the Gulf War, which we had a part in. That caused problems with India's able to afford to import the oil. And then there was also the collapse of the Soviet Union. The USSR was a key trading partner especially for cheap imports and guaranteed exports.
Rest in power.
And it collapsed. Its collapse hurt Indian exporters and disrupted trade payments. So it's one thing I always like to, because there's been arguments on the left about like the importance of the Soviet Union and, was it a perfect country? Of course not. No country had problems. But one thing that it was able to do is provide a lifeline to a lot of different countries that were part of the global South, countries that were newly independent, former colonies like India, a lot of countries in Africa, in South America, etc.
They didn't provide a lifeline. They were trying to spread the evil of socialism.
Yeah, that's what the U.S. propaganda would tell us. So, some people on the left think that the collapse of the Soviet Union is a good thing because it was a perversion of socialism and it was an authoritarian, et cetera, et cetera. However, I argue that its collapse ultimately set the third world and developing countries back at least a few years, and maybe we still haven't recovered from that. Yeah,
definitely. Well, we're still trying to. That's what BRICS is trying to do.
Right.
Yeah, man. It's just, I guess I am a full tanky now. But when you say people on the left, you can't really be on the left and just be like, I don't want to talk about the Soviet Union because Americans are so propagandized to believe just the worst of the worst. No good came of it. They collapsed because of their own fault. Definitely not because of our Cold War efforts.
Right.
Definitely nothing to do with that.
Right.
So, I don't know. Like, I've become way more apologetic. Maybe not apologetic, sorry word.
Sympathetic,
something. I don't know. Like,
yeah.
supportive, radicalized. Because I rock with the USSR. I rock with Mao. I rock with China now. So.
Absolutely. So, obviously, there was a lot of problems with India. So, because of this, they adopted some neoliberal policies in the early 90s. Right? This was the end of the unipolar moment. This was the bipolar, this was the birth of the unipolar moment, I should say. This is whenever the United States became the,
really locked down Western hegemony, and we're
there was no rivals
right
to us.
It's get down or lay down.
This was when I forget his name now, Francis Fukuyama. He wrote the book about the end of history. There's like, this is the end of history. There will only be liberal capitalist democracies and in perpetuity. Like, this is it, guys.
We figured it out.
Yeah, this is it. So
just look around the world today. Look at all the capitalist countries and how great they're doing.
Exactly. So anyway, India was forced to adopt some neoliberal policies, some liberalization, if you will.
Again, if BRICS or the USSR was around, they could have had an alternative, but they had to adopt those neoliberal policies to join the global marketplace. But yeah, go ahead, my bad.
Yeah, absolutely. So, of course, the IMF, they wanted to force structural adjustment programs on to India, which essentially just means they wanted them to privatize their state-owned industries, weaken labor standards, make it a business-friendly environment for Western investment, So this is when you see the rise of inequality in the country. Now, of course,
they would say this is how you get these poor countries out of poverty. But now, at least today, we can look at China as an alternative example because they've had a crazy pull people out of poverty, run within the last 10 years. They've done it way better than any exploited, colonized, capitalist country has. But that would be what they say is, you need to privatize your industry. and let us Americans come in, but you're all going to get jobs, and it's going to create a modern economy for you, and you're going to be all out of poverty. So that's why you got to let us do it. Let Nestle own this lake.
Yes. So I mean, this is what was at the time like sort of considered the Washington Consensus, and this is the problem whenever there's no like countervailing powers in the world. Basically, it's like this is the consensus. This is how you grow your economy. However, we know now in hindsight, of course, it didn't work. This was the trickle down economics.
Kicking down the ladder.
Yep, kicking away the ladder. Shout out to Ha-Joon Chang, South Korean economist, has written a lot
nailed
about
that
this.
pronunciation.
Thank you. So yeah, neoliberal policies, of course, privatization. You saw basically every sort of metric you could use to measure a successful society started to trend in the other way. We saw the same thing after the collapse of the USSR in the Eastern Bloc. Rise of oligarchs. You get the oligarchs, mass privatization. A lot of people go into poverty, cuts in the welfare state, et cetera, et cetera. So what I'm getting at here is these conditions, the privatization, the inequality, the poverty, these lead to fertile ground for people to take advantage of that economic inequality. And this is when you see the rise of the BJP. So the BJP is Modi's political party.
Okay.
Basically, it's
Made it to Modi.
It's a Hindu nationalist party.
Okay.
So I guess the best way to think of it is kind of like how you would think of the evangelical right in the United States.
Very theocratic.
Yes. So they are very anti-Muslim. In fact,
I didn't know Hindus hated Muslims like this.
I don't know if I would use the word hate. I don't want to generalize. I'm sure it's not all Hindus or anything, but yes, there's definitely a strain of that in Indian politics. Let's see. I just wanted to mention this. In 2005, the U.S. had denied Modi a visa over his alleged role in the 2002 Gujarat riots, in which hundreds of Muslims were killed. So apparently
was that during? No. Muslim Brotherhood was after that. So
this was 2005.
When did the Muslim Brotherhood take over? No, that was Egypt. Never mind,
Egypt.
Not India.
Yeah.
So okay, and when did Modi come to power again? When did the BJP come up?
I didn't get there.
Oh, okay, my bad. Go ahead.
So this was 2005. So just for the record, we didn't care for Modi. We revoked his visa or denied him a visa in 2005.
Because the riots?
Yeah, because these riots had apparently killed hundreds of Muslims. This is something I just learned about.
We care about Muslims now.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting.
Okay.
And this was 2005. This is in the middle of like the Iraq War,
right?
So I don't know, but apparently we weren't fans of Modi at first. But after 2014, he became the prime minister, and the West embraced him diplomatically and economically. The U.S. and UK and France and others now host him as a major global statesman, especially as a counterweight to China. So he came to power. BJP was very open to all this sort of Western neoliberal reforms. The West basically said, okay, well, he can be a good partner for us for business, and he can be a way to sort of contain China. All right, so 2014.
Yeah, we need our own billion people as a buffer.
Yeah, and 2014 is about the time when you really start to hear the sort of the anti-China talk. I think Xi Jinping's elected in 2012 or 2013.
It's about the time you hear the jokes about our our kids' history books will be in Chinese, or our grandchildren's history books will be in Chinese. Do you remember like commercials like that?
No,
I remember
that.
literal commercials. I don't know if they were like from libertarian think tanks or something, but they would be like, "This is the future," and it'd be kids going to class, and then their books are in Chinese. But there was a big scare around this time, 2014.
Huh? I don't remember that. I missed that.
I'm gonna see if
somehow.
I can find that.
But anyway, so this is part of the Chinese containment policy. Like,
Right.
you know, we like Modi now. He's cool. He's good for U.S. business. We want to contain China. We don't really care for this Xi Jinping guy who's coming in saying he wants to, you know, move China probably more to the left to get it back on its sort of Marxist path. You know, China had in the 90s.
Pre Xi Jinping, who was that again?
You're probably thinking of Dao Xiaoping. I think that's how you say it.
Was that the guy that worked with Nixon? Who was the one? Okay.
Deng Xiaoping.
So yeah, he opened up China to the West, which would make it more capitalistic, and we obviously benefited because we started buying all their shit. But like you said, Xi Jinping is like going back the other direction.
Yeah, more or less. And you know, people argue about this. I mean, a lot of people essentially say Deng did what he had to. Basically, China needed investment. They needed money. They needed capital. They needed access to advanced technologies. They had to develop, and they weren't going to get those investments without opening up.
Gotcha.
But that period, of course, caused there was widening inequality and all that. So Xi coming into power was sort of like, okay, we've had like the last 20 or 30 years of this opening up period. We've
Right.
been able to sort of move up the value chain and the economic ladder. It's time to like move the other direction. So now, all right,
Yeah.
we've developed our productive forces. Essentially, now we can start to move.
Yeah, we have our industry now.
Yeah, we can start to move in a more socialist direction. And there was I'm kind of getting on off track here, but there was always like this hope that because of all this investment, China would just sort of become capitalist. And whenever Xi came into power, it was clear like, oh no, they're not going to be capitalists. Like, Jesus,
Gotcha.
right? Yeah. So this is why.
Sound the alarm.
Yeah, exactly. So you start hearing a lot of anti-China stuff around this period. So Modi coming into power, being a Hindu nationalist, we were like, yeah, great. This is a guy we need to contain China. This is what I imagine with how they saw him coming
Gotcha.
into power. Anyway, I don't know if they actually said that, but I'm sure they, these are smart guys. They know what they're doing. So anyway, the reason I wanted to get that background is because I think it's important to understand like economic issues are always if economic issues aren't addressed in countries, they're always going to give rise to right-wing forces. Doesn't matter where it's at. It could be America with Trump. It could be Brazil, Bolsonaro.
Because it's reactionary?
What's that?
Because right-wing fascism is reactionary and it's reacting to the inherent instability in these capitalist places, like these economic problems you're talking about that lead to right-wing governments.
Well, what I'm saying is essentially, if you don't have governments in place to, provide material conditions, improving material conditions for the working class, there's going to be a right-wing party or person that's going to take advantage of that and move the country to the right. And that's, essentially what we saw with the rise of the BJP and how Modi got into power. Is that the United States and the Western imperialists forced these neoliberal policies onto India, which eventually led to the rise of Modi. And this has exacerbated the tensions between Pakistan, China, etc. So I think it's important to understand how these things are connected. The West does not want these countries to develop because developing countries are going to adopt left-wing policies because you have to develop. All right.
Hmm.
And as soon as they do that, in order to do that, you have to sort of have a sort of a more secular government, if you will. Right. You can't, the only way that,
nationalist shit.
yeah, the only way, and nationalism isn't bad in and of itself, right? There's a
Right.
lot of the nationalist movements and independence movements out of the
Facts.
global South that they use their nationalism to liberate
IRA.
themselves. The IRA, exactly. A lot of African countries as well,
Hmm.
South American countries. So it's good in that sense, if you're fighting against imperialists or anti-colonial fights. But insofar as it's used to sort of cover or compensate for a lack of any real economic policy, it's a problem, and it's always going to be right wing. It's always going to be fascist adjacent. And this is,
Fascist adjacent. I like that.
yes, absolutely, and this is why we're seeing these problems right now between Pakistan and India. I imagine if it were a more left-leaning government, and India has had a history of left-wing governments. I mean, when it first got its independence, the president his name was Nehru, and he was a left-leaning government. I mean, that's why they had to
Privatize.
privatize everything
Because things were
Yeah,
nationalized.
they had a lot of state-owned industries.
Right.
So I think that's important to remember. Also, Pakistan, I should mention, they had a chance at a left-wing government as well, or a sort of a nationalist government. His name was Imran Khan. I think he came into power in, I want to say 2022, if my memory.
Imran Khan.
Yeah, Imran Khan.
Okay. So in the 2020s.
2019.
2019.
I
Okay.
think it was coming. And he was like a Pakistani cricket player,
Nice.
very popular in the country. When he came into power, there were some hopes that he wanted to have a sort of a non-aligned policy. He wanted good relations with Russia, etc. In fact,
like non-aligned with any of the superpowers.
right.
Okay.
He's like, I want to work with everybody.
Right.
You know?
We got 1 billion people here. Come on.
No, this is Pakistan.
Oh shit! My bad.
Yeah.
You're right. I
But
forgot.
so
I forgot we
Pakistan-
switched.
Pakistan is a large country as well. They, I think they have like 200 and something
Really?
million. It's a large country. I didn't realize how.
Almost as many as we have.
Yeah, 200. They have over 200 million people.
Huh. Okay.
But there were some hopes that when he came into power, that he would, seek better relations with India, and he did at first. But there was some sort of attack, and India blamed Pakistan for it because, again, India is
Go ahead.
the Hindu nationalist movement in India will use any opportunity it can to blame Muslims for the problems. So whenever this attack happened, they immediately blamed Pakistan, just like they did with this latest iteration, this latest terrorist attack. And this basically, and I think they may have bombed Pakistan.
Yeah, I did see that they actually shot some missiles at them.
Well, I'm talking about this in 2019.
Okay, back in
Yeah,
2019.
in February 2019, a suicide bombing in Pulwama, India, Kashmir, killed 40 Indian soldiers. The militant group Jaish-e-Mohammed, based in Pakistan, claimed responsibility. India responded with airstrikes in Balkarat, Pakistan, the first air raid across LOC since 1971. Pakistan shot down an Indian fighter jet and captured the pilot later returned. So, and this basically collapsed any hopes that Imran Khan, its new government, was going to have better relations with India's Modi at the time.
Gotcha.
So there was a chance there, but again, when you have these right wing governments, it's tough. They're gonna use nationalism.
Yeah, to consolidate power.
Yes, to keep their power, and that's always going to cause a problem. So, and this is why historically the West has supported right wing movements, whether it be the Contras in Nicaragua, whether it be the Mujahideen, whether it be the Syrian Islamist groups. I mean, it doesn't matter. You name them. We're going to support those groups because they're destabilizing forces. And anytime you want to see countries developed, you need some sort of cohesive geopolitical understanding between countries. It doesn't have to be perfect, but there at least has to be room for dialogue. And the easiest way to break that up is to support, right-wing groups. So, I mean, there's been some suspicion that even that the West was behind these attacks in Kashmir. That hasn't been substantiated. So I'm just, I don't want people to say I'm a conspiracy theorist.
Like
or
what, like
anything,
the
but-
CIA or something?
No, I mean, again, we don't know.
Okay.
There's nobody's been able to provide any evidence
Gotcha.
for it. But it's because of the history of the United States and the West, these are things you can't ever rule out, unfortunately. So this is going to be a place that we want to continue to keep an eye on because there are two nuclear powers. This is an important region of the world, very large populations, developing. These are going to be. Also, I forgot to mention the Belt and Road Initiative. China has a plan with Pakistan to build a corridor. I think part of that was actually supposed to go through Kashmir, is my understanding. Obviously, the West is not a big fan of China in BRICS and the Belt and Road Initiative right now, and all these development projects that China is helping fund and investing in. So I think this is unfortunately this is a good thing for Western imperialism to see these sort of attacks, these sort of tensions rise. Now we see, just the reports today is that India did, I think you were mentioning, did bomb parts of Pakistan. So this might continue to escalate, and it's very dangerous because these are two nuclear powers. So we'll have to watch this closely.
Definitely. I was just going to see. Yeah, so India launched Operation Sindoor on May 6th, which was today. Conducted missile strikes on 9 sites in Pakistan, and Pakistan administered Kashmir, targeting what it described as terrorist infrastructure. Headquarters of militant groups damn it.
These names are
Jaish-e-Mohammed, it can't be Josh, but it's Jaish, and Lashkar-e-Taiba. So those are the militant groups they targeted. Pakistan reports 8 deaths, including a 16-year-old girl, 35 injuries. And India sounded like Israel when they said the strikes were focused and precise, targeting only known terror. So I did actually try to look up real quick while you were talking at the end there. Have there been a lot of, or just examples of Indian militant groups attacking Pakistan? Mm-hmm. And apparently it's extremely rare to non-existent, but Pakistan claims Indian government involvement, specifically India's intelligence agency, RAW, R-A-W, I don't know what that stands for, but that's dope, of funding and supporting Baloch separatists. Do you know about them? The Baloch Liberation Army? Baloch is a region in Pakistan. It's the largest province, but the smallest by population, apparently. Rich in natural resources. Historically, they've been underdeveloped and politically marginalized. But Pakistan claims India is funding them or helping support them in their separatist attacks on Pakistan. The 2016, Pakistan captured Kulbhushan Jadhav, a former Indian naval officer, and accused him of espionage and sabotage in Balochistan. India said he wasn't a spy, but I don't know, maybe. So it seems like, in Pakistan alleged Indian funding of Matadi Kami movement, MQM factions. I don't know what that is. So it seems like Pakistan's more focused on, or not focused, they're claiming India is like doing state-sponsored attacks. It's just, I don't know. Maybe just because it's fresh in my mind. Seems like a parallel to Israel and Palestine. Like one is like militant radical Islamists, and the other one is using their intelligence and superior. I don't even know if they have a superior military, but they're using their military to do covert operations, fund separatists,
Right.
that type of thing. And I have two more things real quick. Was there anything else you wanted to say before I finish up?
No, that was pretty much. I did forget to mention, just for the record, Imran Khan, who was a wildly popular politician, was sort of overthrown in a lawfare type coup.
A what fair?
Huh?
A lawfare?
Yeah, lawfare. Are you familiar with that term?
No. Are you?
It's just legal warfare.
Huh.
Yeah.
I like that. Okay.
But basically, he was overthrown by the Pakistani military.
Okay.
And there was actually, I'm just going to read this part right
Yeah.
here. So, Imran Khan was removed from office on April 10 of 2022 after losing a no confidence vote in the National Assembly. The Pakistani military, traditionally the most powerful institution in the country, and that's in part because how much we've helped them and funded them over the last few decades, had initially supported Khan's rise, but reportedly withdrew its support amid deteriorating relations. Khan had begun to assert civilian control and clash with the military over foreign policy and domestic governments, especially in choosing top military appointments. The Supreme Court of Pakistan overruled a move by Khan's government to block the no confidence motion. A broad coalition of opposition parties, including former rivals like the PMLN and the PPP, banded together to remove Khan, something difficult without establishment backing. If it wasn't military takeover in the traditional sense, but many viewed it as a civilian facade masking military orchestration. Khan's removal was followed by what many call lawfare, a campaign of arrests, censorship, and legal cases against him and PTI members. PTI was his political party, and
Pardon the interruption.
they actually banned his party afterwards.
What did you just say? Facade? What was that little phrase you said there?
I don't know what you're talking about.
You just said the word facade, and you said some other words beside it. You just read it.
Yeah, it was up here somewhere. What's the question?
Civilian what?
A civilian facade masking military orchestration.
So the military pretending this is a civilian
Yeah.
uprising? Is that what that means?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I gathered
All
from
right,
it.
all right.
I mean, basically, they didn't want to make it look like a blatant coup. So,
But why was the military and him are clashing? Why? Foreign policy, you said?
yeah. Again, my understanding was Imran Khan tried to have sort of a non-aligned foreign policy. And remember, the United States has backed the Pakistani military for a long time.
They've
Has
already-
funded it.
Right.
All right?
Have a tie there. Yeah.
And Imran Khan came into power like, look, we're not going to be...
I gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, we're not going to be the puppets of any other governments. We're going to have our own foreign policy that's independent of Western powers.
Did
et cetera, et
USA
cetera.
just happen to be in Pakistan around this time?
So, yeah, I wasn't finished, so I'm going to keep going here. So
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
so there was a leaked cable. They call it the cipher. What is a cipher? It was a classified diplomatic cable sent by Pakistan's then ambassador to the U.S., Asad Majid, in March 2022. It summarized a meeting with U.S. officials, particularly Donald Lu, Assistant Secretary of State for South and Central Asian Affairs. Lu expressed concern over Khan's foreign policy, especially his neutral stance on Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Khan had visited Moscow on the day the war began. Lu allegedly said that all will be forgiven if Khan was removed through democratic means like a non-confidence vote, but warned of consequences if he remained in power. Khan presented this as evidence of U.S. interference and a threat to Pakistan's sovereignty. In 2023, The Intercept published what it claimed to be the full text of the cable, backing Khan's narrative. The Pakistani government initially dismissed it, but later confirmed its authenticity, though not necessarily that it amounted to a coup. The military and interim civilian government accused Khan of mishandling and politicizing classified information. So,
And Lou was who? The U.S. ambassador?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Was this part of the leak cables whenever all the cables got leaked? When was that? Hillary?
No, this wasn't
No?
part of
Okay.
WikiLeaks. This was very recent. This was
Oh, yeah, that's right. This
2022.
just happened in 2022.
Yeah. I remember when this happened. I remember seeing the reports about it.
Hell yeah, Snowden's still out there leaking shit for us. Thanks, Snowden. Appreciate it.
No, I don't know who leaked this, but
We know.
and it wasn't Snowden. He's in Moscow.
Yep, he did
But-
it for us.
Yeah, man, it's really crazy that basically they were like tried to deny it. They're like, okay, no, it's true. But and then they said after they
They
admitted
should have
that it was
pulled a
true,
Reagan. In my heart, I still believe.
after they admitted it was true, they said, well, you shouldn't have released classified information. So they tried to get him on the fact that you're telling the truth, but also you're revealing classified documents.
Yeah, we could keep talking about how you're telling the truth, or we could talk about how you're revealing classified
But he
documents.
was
I'd
already
much rather talk about that.
They had already imprisoned him, and I think he's still in jail in
Yeah.
Pakistan. So anyway, yeah, we definitely had played a part or pressured the Pakistan's government, the Pakistani government and military in particular, to overthrow a democratically elected leader who wanted a non-aligned foreign policy. And again, all of this is probably exacerbating the tensions between Pakistan
and India.
So
Specifically in Kashmir.
Yeah.
Damn. Okay. Well, shit, we've gone pretty long, so I think we'll probably just wrap it up. But
yeah, sorry.
no, you're good. That was very interesting. I didn't know a lot of that, but I looked up a couple more things real quick. The last two things I want to say before we head out. You said it was the top mass migration, the partition of India in 1947. It is one of the top mass migrations. About 15 million people were displaced. World War II displacements, though, was 30 to 40 million. Syrian civil war was 14 million. So that was almost the same. That's a lot. 7 million internally, 7 million abroad. And then the Great Atlantic Slave Trade, 12 to 15 million. So it's still World War II is the rural to urban migration in China, 300 million. So I guess that's the number one. Holy shit. Irish potato famine, only 1.5. And then 8 million in Ukraine. So
I think it's probably referring to like mass migration that wasn't like directly caused by like a war, like a.
That was just like caused by a colonizer saying, "This is what we're gonna do."
Right.
Yeah,
Because those other examples
again,
are-
like a Palestine situation.
Right.
But yeah. So, and then the last thing I wanted to say, we talk about when you talked about the East India Company, it always reminds me of my favorite beer fact or my favorite bar fact about beer. Do you know why IPA is called IPA?
No, I feel like I used to know that, but go ahead.
IPA stands for India Pale Ale.
Okay, yeah.
IPAs have a lot of hops. They have a lot of hops because it's a preservative, and they needed extra hops and higher alcohol content to prevent the beer from spoiling when it's coming from Britain to India because of the colonization. And the East India Company was the one that they didn't brew the beer, but they moved most of it. And it was mostly, their people that were drinking it in India. So that's why it's called India Pale Ale. That's why it's called IPA. And
So this was beer that was coming from India.
no, coming from Britain to India,
India.
to the colonized,
Okay.
the British colonizers in India, because they wanted to
okay.
drink their beer from back home,
Right,
but
so
it would spoil.
right,
So they had to
so-
add a bunch of hops and more alcohol.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
The British.
colonization gave us IPAs. So there you go. So that doesn't make up for anything, though, Brits. Maggie's in a box, bitch. But yeah, that's it. Any final thoughts?
Nah, just hope we don't go to a nuclear war. lot of potential nuclear confrontations going on right now. So just stay tuned. And
honestly, I think if they had a little nuclear skirmish, they might just stay over there.
yeah, we don't want to find out.
You want to roll the dice?
No.
I feel you. It's all right, bro. We might be wanting to whenever we go to the store and there's nothing to fucking buy.
Right.
We got bread lines. Fuck it. Nuke it. But yeah, no, that's it. Thanks for coming out. Thanks for listening to the pod, the Forest Pod. What is it? forestpod.org?
Yeah, .org. ORG.
You can go there right now and give us your email. But eventually it'll be a page and we'll have other stuff up there. But
No doubt.
thanks for listening.
Stay tuned for the merch.
Yeah, merch on the way. Cop it.
I don't know about that.
I mean, you can just get print on demand shit. It's easy. All right, man. I'll holla. Comrade Villain. I'm out.
Peace.
Peace, comrades. Power to the people.
There's no way to be committed to nonviolence in the middle of the most violent society that history's ever created. I'm not committed to nonviolence in any way.
The Republican Party and the Democratic Party are beholden to the interests of monopoly capitalism in this country.
The capitalist European and North American powers have carved out and taken the timber, the flax, the hemp, the cocoa, the rum, the tin, the copper, the iron, the rubber, the bauxite, the slaves, and the cheap labor. They have taken out of these countries. These countries are not underdeveloped, they're overexploited.
The liberals are, at times, allies. At times, they're unreliable allies. So I don't want to just whitewash them. You've got to proceed quite cautiously with liberals.
The man or woman who knows the least about communism is the man or woman who wants to know the least about communism. That is to say, snakes are my enemies. They come to bite me, and I don't even want to know what they look like.
What's happening here for the last 4 years? Brutality, humiliation, our basic human rights taken away from us. All of this has to come to an end through talking. So what? We take their offer and put their uniform on? These last 4 years meant nothing. We could do that, no. Or we could behave like the army we proclaim to be and lay down our lives for our comrades.